Hey, what's happening, everybody? Happy Sunday to you. Tim from Alpha Trading coming at you with this week's market overview and stocks to watch for trading and investing. All right, so it's going to be a event-filled week ahead. Let me tell you, we've got a lot going on. Could be a very interesting week for the markets. Let's start with the economic data like we do every single week. We've got a lot going on. With nothing Monday, but then we've got on Tuesday we've got personal income, consumer spending, core inflation, Case-Shiller home price index, CCI, consumer confidence index, and pending home sales. Then we've got the ADP employment report on Wednesday. We've got the FOMC announcement. Now, this could be a big one, right? So, there are some that are anticipating a half a point cut. There are some that are anticipating a 25%, a quarter point cut. Uh, and there's a possibility we may not get any cut at all. So the 25 point could be viewed as disappointing on Wall Street if we only get a quarter point cut. And if we get a 50 point cut, then that that could indicate maybe there's some things really wrong out there that uh, we're not seeing yet. So I mean, this is going to be a very interesting uh, Fed meeting. I think what they do and how the street interprets it, how it reacts is probably going to be a big deal. And then we've got after that announcement, we've got Jerome Powell with a press conference. So uh, a lot of times with the FOMC day, that first move is a head fake until the news gets absorbed. And then, of course, as the press conference goes on, and depending on what Jerome Powell says, the market will react to that. But that could be a pretty impactful day on Wednesday. So, heading into that day could be a bit choppy. Keep that in mind. But definitely going to be a big deal with the FOMC. We've got China trade talks restarting or rebooting, right? And I don't anticipate that that's good. There's going to be a lot coming out of that, but you never know. Could be something that impacts the markets. Maybe Trump gets, starts tweeting again. Who knows? But that could impact things this week. Then we've got weekly jobless claims. We've got uh, manufacturing PMI, ISM manufacturing, construction spending, and motor vehicles, right? And then we've got non-farm payrolls and unemployment rate on Friday. So I mean, we've just got a ton of stuff going on. Trade deficit, consumer sentiment index, and factory orders. So a lot of economic data that could impact the markets, and the Fed, China, a lot of stuff that could really move stocks. We'll see how it plays out. Uh, in terms of earnings, there are a boatload. We've got a broad array of a lot of different sectors that are reporting earnings this week, and not all of these make the stocks to watch list, but of course they are very important, right? And something that we want to pay close attention to. I've got a few of these stocks on the stocks to watch list for this week, but there are others that are definitely want to keep an eye on, right? Stocks like Square and stocks like Amgen and Pfizer and Merck and Under Armour, right? And Twilio, Exxon and Chevron. I mean, we've got, like I said, a pretty broad array of stocks reporting. I think one of the biggest ones that's going to be interesting is Beyond Meat. That stock has been unstoppable, but the valuation is getting very rich. It's getting a bit scary, and if these guys don't hit it out of the ballpark, then I think you could potentially see some unwinding there. But good luck with the shorts. I mean, it's very expensive borrows, and I think you just never know when the momentum is going to leave. So be careful if you're trying to short that thing. Don't get stubborn. Let's see what else we've got. GM reporting. There's just a fire eye. There's a bunch of stocks that, like I said, from a broad array of industries that are reporting this week, and that likely we will have some movers and shakers off of earnings. Right, we've got Apple reporting, Qualcomm, a lot of big names. So, gonna be some fireworks there, I'm sure. But let's take a look at the overall sectors and the overall market and see how we're looking there. So, IBB, interesting area, right? We actually kind of are trying to hold on to the 50-day moving average as well as this trend line. And it's not, I got to tell you, IBB is not looking all that great. We break below that trend line, I think we get a test back down to this 100 level, and that could be problematic for some of the biotech names out there. Like I said, we've got a couple of big names that are reporting this week. Maybe that gives us the lift, but we're kind of forming a nice wedge pattern here. We'll see which way this winds up breaking, but we are at an area of potential support. Maybe we get a bounce this week. We'll see how it plays out. IWM, encouraged by the action last week, towards the end of the week there, still kind of flagging out here, right? Another one that is maybe testing this little trend line here and kind of flagging out. And we'll see if maybe we can break out to the upside and take out that 160 that has been acting as resistance. I really would like to see small caps to kind of take over and get a nice pop for an extended period of time, right? That's what I'd like to see is small caps become in fuego, I guess. And we'll have to see how it plays out this week. I would not like to see us break below the moving averages or this trend line. So that would be problematic if we see that in the IWM. IYT transportation consolidating above the 50 and the 200 day. Kind of have a reverse head and shoulders pattern there. This area up around 200 is big spot for IYT to try and get through. But it's looking fairly constructive. QQQs, right? We are consolidating and trying to take out new all-time highs. We'll see what happens this week. Got some big names reporting in the tech space. SMH also consolidating. So we've got AMD and Qualcomm reporting. Really impressed with the strength of the SMH move. Has been a leader for quite a long time throughout this bull market, and testing all-time highs once again. We'll see what happens this week with AMD and Qualcomm, but SMH looking pretty strong. Could be a bit extended though. It's had a really big run. S&P 500, right? All-time highs, breaking out. Let's see if we get any kind of follow through this week. Now, TVIX and UVXY, very low levels on TVI, no volatility out there. Look, if they don't like what the Fed has to say, if we get some big earnings misses this week, if we get some bad China rhetoric, and look, that could spook the markets, right? And if that happens and you see fear start to come in, you see some things, start to, some sectors and some stocks start to roll over, keep an eye on TVIX and UVXY for potential short-term trading opportunities. XLB, materials sector, consolidating here near an area of potential resistance. But constructive. Let's see what might need more time to consolidate, but looking fairly constructive. XLE and energy, right? So energy, I've been saying that it could be a short-term trading opportunity. but it has been a sector that has just struggled and continues to struggle. Maybe Exxon and Chevron earnings would change that this week. We'll have to see, but still not looking. They're just much better looking sectors out there than XLE or oil and exploration, right? So I think that's a sector that you kind of tend to avoid for right now, unless you're looking to start building up some starter positions for some long-term hold positions. That sector just still is not looking all that healthy. XLF, so interesting. I did see a lot of insider buys in different banks over the last week, and that was kind of interesting to me. Regional banks, so forth and so on. Maybe there's going to be some consolidation in the industry. I don't know. I just found that pretty interesting. Looking at OpenInsider.com, several banks having some insider buys. So XLF kind of breaking out a little bit. Financials, I think maybe it's a sector you keep an eye on for continued strength. You typically more swing, long-term hold type plays, but kind of got a reverse head and shoulders pattern. Speaking of that, reverse head and shoulders pattern seems to be like the setup of the week. There are just a ton of stocks out there that have a reverse head and shoulders pattern, look really compelling. So we'll get to that in a minute when we go through the list. XLI industrials looking pretty constructive here. At an area of potential price resistance. See if maybe we can break out to the upside. XLP, consumer staples, continue to grind higher. Now, it'll be interesting to see if Beyond Meats, if they disappoint and that pulls back, if that impacts XLP at all. I don't know if it's in that or not, but could be interesting. But continues to grind higher. XLV, healthcare, trying to hold on to the 50-day moving average, flagging out a little bit. Looks much better than IBB. We'll see if that can hold this 50-day moving average heading into next week or through next week. Consumer discretionary continues to consolidate after testing the trend line. Holding above this 120 mark as that could be potential support. See if maybe we drift back down and test that level. XOP, oil and exploration, right? Just not looking healthy. Could be a double bottom, maybe. Getting close to a double bottom test here, but just not a great looking sector. And then retail actually trying to consolidate above the 50-day moving average. The sector that I am not fond of. I think I've made that clear over the years, but it is actually consolidating and looking like maybe it's trying to shore up. We'll see, but like I said, I'm not interested in the space. All right, so that is the overall take on the markets. Let's take a look at T2107 and T2108. 7. The amount of stocks above the 200-day moving average, and we're kind of fiddle in the middle, right? We're fiddle in the middle. We've been that way kind of as the market has been grinding higher or sectors grinding sideways. We're just kind of doing the same thing with T2107 and T2108. Same thing, kind of fiddle in the middle. Let's just take a look at one other thing, the McClellan oscillator. That also is kind of fiddle in the middle, right? We're not overly excited, and we're not full of fear, right? We're not scared. So just kind of fiddle in the middle. Let's see what this week brings. It could be a very impactful week. But regardless of what the overall market does, I think there will still be individual stocks that present opportunities to trade. So, with that being said, let's move on to this week's list of stocks to watch. So, HBIO. So small stock, new CEO, reported earnings. Uh, Kind of got a reverse head and shoulders pattern here. Broke out on pretty good volume for it, right? 4.7 million shares, only 24.5 million shares in the float, if that's accurate, because TC2000 has been inaccurate for quite a while on the float recently. So, pretty nice pop on Friday. So, first day of the move, could this be a 2-3 day mover? It's done it in the past, right? Where it's had some nice 3-4 day runs. Maybe you get a red to green on this one. Maybe a pullback to say 250 or so, 235, somewhere in that area. It could be an entry zone for a bounce, and then look for it to take out Friday's high. Maybe get a 3 test and roll up to about the 200-day moving average, right around $3.29. So I think this is a good potential red to green day trading opportunity. Maybe a day trade and then you hold a few shares as lottos for a swing overnight, but definitely worth keeping an eye on HBIO. Recent reverse split. Now this one is on the list. It's not a great looking chart, right? Long-term chart is pretty ugly actually. Big gap down. There is a gap to fill on the daily. Like I said, recent reverse split. They have a presentation this week. They're releasing some data, and that could actually give this thing a lift. I'm not sure what the float is after the reverse split, but actually I could probably find out right here. Reduced from approximately 153 million to 15.3 million shares. Decreased from 10 million. It got burned. So 15 million shares, small float. They have any kind of good news from this release this week, and potentially you could get some action here in this PSTI. Now I don't know how their cash position is. It could be just a day trading opportunity. If it gets a nice pop, they could be looking to raise capital, check and see if they've got an S3 filing. But that is one to keep an eye on this week. INT, for oil gas refining, this one is breaking out. Pretty impressive look here on the daily time frame, taking out this $37 with some conviction on Friday, and I am going to see what was it that popped this thing on Friday. I do not know. Pullback yesterday, possible. Hold on. Second quarter. It looks like they reported earnings, so this is an earnings break. Very impressive, nice volume. Worth keeping an eye on this one for a potential red to green continuation move. ARLO, software infrastructure, nice little pop on Friday. Pierced the 50-day moving average, reversing up. Stochastics curling up. MACD looking like it could go positive. Another one that looks like we'd have some resistance somewhere around the $4.50 range. Maybe you get a red to green on this one, a pullback to about 415 or so, and then looking for a pop up to 475, maybe even a 5 test. There is a gap to fill on the daily. Not sure when these guys, oh wait a minute, they report on the 6th, right? Tuesday of next week. So they have earnings right around the corner. I wouldn't probably hold this thing through earnings. Maybe it gets a nice little trading opportunity heading into earnings, and then you get out. But worth keeping an eye on ARLO for a little red to green scalp opportunity. Zyop, great looking setup on the daily here. Nice big run, consolidating, right? Got below the 20-day, reclaimed it on Friday, actually kind of consolidating right above the 50-day, allowing the 50-day to catch up. Stochastics curling up. MACD about to go positive. Little volume on Friday. looking for potential continuation on this one. And let me just back this out to a weekly time frame and see where we have a big potential area of resistance. So we've got some resistance in the 660 area, 650 to 660 area. And then if we could take that out with a little conviction, maybe we get it pop up into the 750 area, somewhere in that range. But good looking setup on the daily. Looks like they just announced a new CFO. Not sure when these guys report earnings, but just a short-term trading opportunity is what I'm looking for there. Look for some continued volume to come in, but pretty nice look on SEAC, SEAC. So, this one, a little bit of a disappointment because I flagged this thing for the pro members actually back when Karen Singer, activist investor, bought 1 million shares at $1.55 and $1.66, $1.60. It's fairly small float, 29 million shares in the float, but kind of has an interesting setup on the daily. The record kind of reminds me of the setup record had actually about a week ago. Right, flirting with the $2 holla. Right, we come up and tested that a few times. Now this is the third day of the move, fourth day of a move. Right, from 160 up to testing this $2 area, but big gap to fill on the daily. And let me tell you what I find really interesting about this one is that if you back this thing out to the weekly time frame, you've got this long-term dominant trend, right? That it actually finally broke over. And then if you go back to the daily, right? So you look at that long-term dominant trend line, right? And then you go back to the daily, and you can see that it broke above this trend, that trend line, came back down and basically tested the top of it again, and then made a move higher. So really kind of indicates that that long-term trend has changed, right? It tested it, and now it's been stair-stepping higher. So I think ideally, I'm not sure when these guys report. I think ideally, an entry on this thing, and this could be a high-risk speculative swing or longer-term play. But a pullback into the 160 area, 160, 170 area could be an interesting area to take this 160 down to 150, right? We've got a potential golden cross that's about to happen, 50 crossing above the 200 day. Like I said, I'm not sure when these guys are reporting earnings. It's got a small float, but this one is worth keeping an eye on a pullback. Like I said, 170 down to 150 area as an entry zone. But I think this one is a pretty interesting speculative play on SEAC for a long-term trend reversal. SCKT, so actually this is one I looked at in the past, and one of the members brought it up last week. It actually has kind of an interesting look. Reverse head and shoulders pattern, right? Potential flat top breakout. Got a little bit of volume on Friday. Now this trade's very, very thin. It only has, I don't think this is actually accurate. I think it's still a small float. It's not 295,000 shares small, but it is a small float. And I think it's worth keeping an eye on this one for that break over 260 with conviction. Maybe you get a pop up into the $3 range. Just a day trading opportunity on that one. PIRS. So I think this was on last week's list. It's on this week's list as well. They have earnings the 1st, which is Thursday. It's been consolidating. It's holding the 50-day moving average. If they report good earnings, possibly you get a break over this 575. Next area of resistance is somewhere around 585, $6. Not crazy about the fact that stochastics have curled to the downside, but you know, after earnings, if these guys get a pop, could be worth keeping an eye on for a trading opportunity. Let me just see something here real quick. So again, so we've got a trend line, right? Got this trend line, broke above it, and then came back down, tested it, and stair stepping higher. So keep an eye on PIRS and see if maybe we can get a pop up into the $6 range. FSLY, recent IPO. I think this was on last week's list. Nice breakout, actually, right? Looking for a break above 22 bucks with some conviction, and got that this week. And now it's heading towards testing all-time highs. So a little bit of a extent, it is getting a little extended, but could get a red to green and a test of that high, and maybe it finds resistance there. But worth keeping an eye on FSLY for a trading opportunity. This TLRA had some news last week. It looks like they're going to present at Canaccord Genuity on, let's see, August 7th. So they've got an event coming up. Not sure when their earnings are. This has been consolidating really, really well right here near the $8 Hala. So one thing I don't like about this one, pretty significant insider sells recently. And I mean, pretty significant. So really kind of looking at this one is just a trading opportunity if it gets some volume. Had a nice press release about WD-40 and their advertising and how impressed WD-40 the corporation was. You know, maybe this thing's going back up to test in the all-time highs at 11 bucks or so. Break over 8 with conviction and with volume could be an opportunity to trade it. I probably wouldn't hold it into earnings. Like I said, I'm not crazy about the fact that there was, fairly significant insider sells there, but I think for a short-term trading opportunity on a break over 8 could be worth taking a little trade. Ruby, I got to tell you, I missed the boat on Ruby. Started watching this thing really closely back down in the $3 range, and had a CEO that picked up 100,000 shares at $3.42, and look at where it's at now, $7.70. And this one also has a pretty interesting look. It finally took out the 740 as resistance, looking for potential continuation there. Not sure when these guys report earnings. Make sure you check that out on all of these stocks. But this thing has been grinding higher. It just took out an area of resistance. Potential continuation. Maybe a pullback to $7 would be an interesting spot to take it for a bounce, maybe a swing if their earnings aren't right around the corner. But continues to grind higher. I like the look of Ruby quite a bit. AXSM, flirting with blue skies, $28 Hala. This had an amazing run, this thing, and it is, just to make sure, all-time highs. And I'm not sure when AXSM reports earnings, but nice little pop on Friday with some volume, looking for a break over 28 for maybe a trading opportunity, day trading opportunity. Stochastics curled up. MACD looking like it's about to go positive. Good looking chart on AXSM. NVTA, another really good looking chart. Kind of got that reverse head and shoulders pattern on it. And flirting with the $26 Hala. All right, nice round number roll. And this would be all-time highs. Another one that would be in blue skies. So good looking setup there on NVTA. Let me see. Okay, they have earnings on August 6th. So not next week, or not this week, but the week coming up. But pretty good looking setup. Maybe we get a breakout over 26 heading into earnings. as a trading opportunity and then get out ahead of the number. BTX, another one that's kind of got that. It's got an interesting look, right? So broke above this trend line, and we're at an area of potential price resistance just below the 200-day. If we can take out that 200-day, I think this thing gets a pop up into the 175 area. Pretty nice move for a $1.24 stock. This could be interesting on a pullback to $1.16 for an entry. Put your stop just below a buck, and you're looking to go up and maybe test that 200-day. If we can take that out, then you get a pop up into, like I said, buck 75 area or so, maybe even a $2 holla. All right, SYRS. Okay, going back to that longer term trend line. Look, we've got a long term trend line. We broke above it, and now we've come back. We've tested the top of it. We found that to be support, or it found that to be support, and potentially bouncing off of that, right? So this is another small float. Could be interesting. Let's see. They report Thursday, August 1st. So I wouldn't hold this through when they report, but could be interesting after they report if it winds up taking out the $8 holla. WYY, a guy I respect on Twitter. Some of you probably know him. Sandman, dipping his toe back into WYY. I have played WYY in the past myself. New CEO, new management team, really have turned this company around. Close to being, actually they just went profitable. They have no debt. They paid off their debt. It's a pretty impressive company. It's been meandering around in this 40-cent range for a while. The only thing I don't know for sure is whether or not these guys are looking to potentially do a reverse split. Maybe you dip your toe here, and then if they do a reverse split, you look to add this. This is more of a long-term hold, kind of turnaround, high-risk turnaround story, but very impressive what the CEO has done, new CEO has done in the last 2 years with the company, and I do believe that they are on the right track, and this is probably an underappreciated name. The insiders have been buying shares, 135,000 shares, 58 and 67 cents. So, it pulls back and tests 38 cents. I think that would be a good opportunity to maybe dip on a double bottom test. If they do a reverse split, then you look to maybe add to the position. Like I said, higher risk, but I think a very good story, underappreciated, and could be a good one to keep an eye on for a speculative high risk swing. TDOC, kind of has a reverse head and shoulders pattern here. $71 is kind of a line in the sand. Reporting earnings this week. I believe it is on Wednesday or Thursday. Takes out $71. I think potentially you're going back up to retest those all-time highs in the 86 area. Worth keeping an eye on for a trading opportunity off of earnings. LLNW, insider buys, and actually looking at potential double bottom, right? So they already reported earnings behind them. It's had a 3-day run, so I don't think you should, I wouldn't want to chase it up there. Closer to 230 to 220 could be an entry zone for a swing type play, looking for it to go back up and test the 50-day. It's kind of a slow mover, but potential double bottom there on LLNW, and jumping in with the recent insider buys. VHC. So actually, VHC, I was looking at this one for a potential entry at 7. It actually pulled back to 7. I didn't get the entry, but checking out this little trend line here, it broke out over this 680, which was a big spot of resistance. Now we've come back down. We've tested it as support and starting to move higher again. You know, this is a patent play. Not sure when these guys report earnings, but something seems to be going on here, and maybe this goes back up and tests the 780. Depending on when earnings are, I wouldn't hold this through earnings, but worth keeping an eye on this VHC for a trading opportunity. ASUR software application, nice run, pulled back, broke below the 20-day, pulled back to an area of potential price support right around 850. I would really like to get this thing at about $8. Pull back to the 50-day, test $8, maybe break below it, get down to about 780. That would be my entry. I'm not sure when these guys report earnings. Actually, hold on. I do know. It's right here. August 8th, so next week. Maybe it pulls back to this $8 area, 780. That could be the entry zone. If they break out over this trend line, I think you get another 10 test and maybe take 10 out. Head up into the 1150 area if they report good earnings. But nice looking setup there on the daily for ASUR. ATEC. Nice consolidation, right? Just coiling up here right above the 50-day. Broke out a little bit. Now, I don't like this candle, this reversal candle. I'm not sure when these guys report. Oh, it looks like they reported. And it looks like they were pretty decent earnings. So, maybe on a pullback to 430 or so, or 430 to 465, somewhere in that area. See if it holds the support for a bounce. Could be a swing opportunity in ATEC. Let me back this thing out to the monthly real quick here. This was a big area that it's trying to break through, the 435. So 430 to $4 could be an entry zone for ATEC. But I like the look of this consolidation. Had a nice pop off of earnings. Maybe we come back, we retest this area of support, and then bounce. And GDEN. So gaming stock kind of has a reverse head and shoulders pattern on it. These guys are going to report earnings on August 6th. So let me tell you my thesis on this. This is more of a long-term hold play, and I went through the last earnings call. What I found interesting is they had mentioned that now Golden Gate Entertainment bought the Stratosphere. They've been spending money refurbishing the rooms and the casino over at the Stratosphere. That has been putting a little pressure on the stock. They just did a couple of acquisitions in Laughlin. They're going to continue to spend on the refurbishment of the Stratosphere heading into the end of the year, and that could put some pressure on earnings, and that's why the stock has been declining. But what I found interesting in their earnings call is they mentioned that they also own a bunch of pubs called PT's Pub here in Las Vegas. There are just, I think there are a boatload of them. They're opening up everywhere, and those do extremely well. And it's kind of, it's not, they're not just tied to strip revenue. They've got the locals, right? And what I found interesting is in their earnings release, they mentioned the fact that seasonality-wise, since we've got the Golden Knights, when the Knights are playing, they tend to do better, right? And because everybody's going out to the bar to watch the Knights play, right? So I thought that was interesting, and then it led me to thinking about the fact that we're going to have the Raiders Stadium completed in 2020. Now, this is more of a swing or long-term hold consideration, but you know, these guys are likely going to benefit when the Raiders Stadium is built and the Raiders are playing here in Vegas, right? Their locations are probably going to get busier when the Raiders are playing. So, long-term theme here, thinking more of a swing, long-term hold. Uh, actually, this 13, what is it? The $12 to, what is it? 1360 area are pretty interesting. I think it could be an entry zone on that. And if we back this, we take a look at the longer term trend line, right? $12 is kind of, or 1150 is kind of the area where we may find some long-term trend support. And I think this one is worth keeping an eye on for a potential, because when the spend on the Stratosphere, when that remodeling is done, they may wind up building a convention center there. If they do that, that could be a drag. But what they have going on also is they've got World Resorts and the Drew, which are on their side of the strip, that are going to be opening. That's going to bring a lot more foot traffic down to that section of the strip. And then also the convention center expansion is on that side of the strip. So a lot more foot traffic around the Stratosphere, and I think they're going to benefit from all this revamping that they've done. So that spend will come to an end towards end of the year. I think that's going to be a really good potential catalyst. Sorry to go on so long about this GDEN, but it's a long-term hold consideration, and I might start dipping the toe on this one. All right, and let's see what else we got. CHGG reporting earnings. Great looking setup on the daily, little flag pattern there. All-time highs for this stock. Potential continuation if they report good numbers. Sirius Satellite Radio, interesting options activity reporting this week. I actually wanted to buy it down here. I didn't. It had a nice run already. It's at an area of resistance. If they disappoint, might get a pullback. Retest down to that 520 area. I could look to dip my toe there for a long-term hold. If this thing breaks over 620, 650 with conviction, I think potentially we could have a move heading back up into the 760 area. So thicker stock, more of a swing or long-term hold consideration. AMD, great looking setup on the daily. They're reporting. If they report good numbers, look for a break over 35, breakout over 35, 34 entry could be interesting on a pullback. ERII, great looking setup, broke over an area of resistance at $11, right? Pulled back. I think that was off contract news. Pulling back, testing 11 as support. What was resistance now? See if it acts as support. Could look for a trend line break and a retest up to $12 or more. Good looking setup on ERII. Neon is flirting with a $3 break. It also has kind of a reverse head and shoulders pattern, right? Maybe a day trading opportunity on Neon. Probably not one of my favorite charts for this week, but worth at least having on the radar for a break over 3. STRM, interesting company that has had decent earnings. They're switching over to a recurring revenue model. It's a thin stock, trades very thin, 14,000. An entry at $1.14 I think is fairly compelling. A trend line break could be a day trading opportunity if you get some real volume. But this is like a higher risk swing or long term hold play on a company that is making a new transition into a differentiated product for medical billing, which I think is a big area. So interesting name. It's broke over this long-term trend line. It had a nice pop up, $2, pulling back. Could be getting to an area of support. Insider buys from the 96 to $1 range, about 100,000 shares. So pretty interesting stuff there at STRM. More of a swing, long-term hold type play. BLDP consolidating what? Reverse head and shoulders pattern right there. Boom, boom, boom. Flat top breakout, maybe over 420. Looking for a pop up into the $5 range. Probably take some off the table there. Could potentially go up and test in the 560. CTG had earnings last week. Nice pop. Got up to this area of resistance, pulling back. I'm looking at 4 as really potentially good support for this thing, going back to 2017. And you got stochastics on the weekly starting to curl up. All right, so you had to pop. The chasers got shook out. Look for it to come back and test this 4 area. I mean, it actually came back, it pierced below the 50-day and then actually closed right at the 200-day. So could be an interesting opportunity there. It looks like a small float, but watch CTG if it gets down to $4 for an entry for a bounce. MDR, full disclosure, I have a position in MDR. They report this week. I think it's Monday after the close. Pulling back, heading into their earnings. Stochastics not liking the look of that. But if this pulls back down to the $9 to $8.09 range, I could look to add to my position. I do think they had 2 projects that were really hurting them. I think one of them is near completion. The other one not far behind. Once those things are done, I think that could be good for MDR. This is also the former Chicago Bridge and Iron. Long-term hold play there, an MDR. BIOX, so BIOX, super thin, recent IPO. Look, I thought they had earnings. Yeah, they did. Real thin. I'm just kind of keeping an eye on this. Pull back to 550 area could be interesting as an area of support for a bounce. Just a day trading opportunity there. HBIO, that's the last one. That is it. That's a big list. Big list. And I think some real good opportunities there. That is the entire list for this week that normally would go out to the pro members. This is the last opportunity heading into August to be able to become a member of Alpha Wolf Trading for only $197 a year, going back to $299. But this gives you an idea of what the pro members get every single week. All right. Good luck trading next week. Going to be an eventful week ahead. Don't chase. Know your risk reward. Always have a plan. And good luck to you next week. I'll see you all